Hi everyone, my name's Colleen and I'm an educator at the St. Louis Art Museum. Welcome to Wee Wednesday. Today we're going to be talking about our world and nature. We're going to start by reading a story together, then we'll be looking at some art from the museum's collection, and we'll end by making our own art. Feel free to pause the video at any time if you'd like to get a closer look, if you'd like to talk about something with the people that you're with, or if you need to gather some art supplies. Are you ready? Let's get started. Today, we're going to be reading a story called Tiny Perfect Things. Something that I like to do before I read a new book, or even if it's a book that I've read before, is I like to take a look at the cover to see if I can find out some things about the story. Let's take a look at this cover together. What do you notice? I see lots of different clues on this cover. I see a child with their grown-up. It looks like they're holding hands. It looks like she might even be pointing at something, maybe that she's seen. I see lots of different plants and flowers and trees. And I even spot some tiny little creatures up in the corners here. I see a tiny little butterfly and a tiny little dragonfly. What do you think the story might be about based on what we can see? Let's find out. Tiny Perfect Things, written by M.H. Clark, illustrated by Madeline Klepper. Today, we keep our eyes open for tiny perfect things. What tiny perfect things do you see on this page? Like here on the ground, a yellow leaf that the wind blew down. Spider web that's caught the light. She looks really surprised. Have you seen anything recently on your neighborhood walks? A snail that climbed the fence last night. See all the crows up in this tree? I watch them, and they watch me. Who do you like to go exploring with? I like to go exploring with my dog. Here's a red bottle cap, and a man with a beautiful feather in his hat, and a flower growing through a sidewalk crack. Look, our shadows are holding hands. They walk when we walk, and they stand when we stand. Something I like to do while I'm reading a story is I like to predict what I think might happen on the next page. What do you think might happen next in this story? Maybe you could talk about that with the people that you're with. I see a cat on the steps and someone we know. Let's wave hello. Hello. Here's an apple way up high, red against the blue, blue sky. And now I see the pale, bright moon. Do you see the moon on this page? getting cold. Let's go home soon. Around the corner, up the stairs, the light is on. Who's waiting there? Who do you see that's waiting for them? We found so many things today. A leaf, a snail, a cat, some crows. The world is full of wonders no matter where we go. What things do you like to look for on your walks? I like to look for different kinds of trees and different kinds of birds. Can we go again tomorrow? I wonder what we'll see. What do you see that she's doing here? Looks like she might be making some art based on what she saw. The world is full of perfect things when you come look with me. What do you see on this page? How many tiny perfect things can you find? The end. I invite you to think about your favorite part of the story and talk about that with the people that you're with. We're going to travel to the museum now to look at some works of art. Since we can't go to the museum in real life, I want you to imagine how you might get there. Are you going to take a locomotive train and chugga along? Are you going to get in a kayak and paddle really fast across the Grand Basin to get there? Or are you going to take a very bumpy ride on a camel? So decide how you might get there and close your eyes and woo! Wow, that was a really long journey, but I'm glad that we made it. Phew. So let's everyone get comfortable and take a big deep breath in through your nose, out through your mouth, and let's get ready to look at some really amazing works of art. We're going to look at some works of art from the museum's collection together now. If you'd like, you can scroll down on the page to get a closer look at the images we'll be viewing together. Feel free to pause the video at any time to do this. Take a close look at this work of art. What do you see? What do you see that makes you say that? What do you notice about the colors and shapes? This is a parfleche made by a Native American artist from the Plateau region of North America. It's a waterproof container made of rawhide, which is an animal skin that's been cleaned and treated to make it soft. This would have been used to store a variety of items such as clothing, tools, and food. Imagine you were going on a journey out into the world. What might you bring with you? Let's see how another artist created art out of items found in nature. Take a close look at this work of art. What do you see? How is this work of art like the parfleche bag we just looked at together? How is it different? This is a cloak made by a Maori artist from New Zealand. It would have been given as a gift, and cloaks like this were worn by both men and women. What do you notice about the materials the artist used to make this cloak? Let's zoom in to get a closer look. Now that we have a closer look, what materials from nature can you see being used here? This cloak is made from thousands of feathers woven together to create a pattern. A pattern is a repeated design. What shape is being used to create this pattern? Let's count how many rectangles are in this pattern. How many white rectangles are there? How many green rectangles are there? Count with the people that you're with. Now that we've looked at some art together, let's travel back home so we can make our own art. So hop on that train, or paddle in that kayak, or get on your camel and let's head home. So for our art making project today, we are going to be doing some nature rubbings and collages. And a collage is just a work of art that's a collection of many different things put together. So I'm going to show you a few different techniques to use today. And for our supplies, you're going to need some kind of paper. It doesn't matter what kind of paper you have, anything is fine. Plain paper, paper from magazines or newspapers, just something to draw on or collage on top of. You're going to need some crayons. And crayons are the best things to use for this, but you could also kind of get by with some pencils if you have pencils, or if you have oil pastels. And you'll notice that my crayons have the wrappers taken off of them, which I'll explain why they have the wrappers taken off. But that's something that you might want to do to your crayons if you're using crayons. And I'm also going to be using tape today, but you could also use glue. And then the main thing that we're going to really need today is our items from nature. So I went on a walk in my neighborhood and I collected things that I found on my walk. Now it's really important that when you're looking for things to use in your nature collage that you only use things that are on the ground. We don't want to pick anything. You can go in your backyard if you have a yard, or you can go just on a walk, and I found lots of this stuff just on the sidewalk. So we really want to make sure that we don't pick anything because that's not good for plants, and if it doesn't belong to us, we don't want to do that unless you go in your own yard and your grown-up says it's okay to pick stuff. But you can find tons of great stuff just on the sidewalk, which is where I found most of these items. So I have leaves and sweet gum balls and weeds and pine needles. So really there's lots of great stuff that you can use, and it doesn't matter what you find. Lots of different things will work for this project. So to start, I'm going to do some rubbings on my piece of paper. And for our rubbings, what we're going to want to do is actually put the item that we want to do the rubbing of underneath our sheet of paper. So I'm going to start my work of art with a rubbing, and I'm going to use this leaf here. So I'm going to stick the leaf underneath my piece of paper, and this is where our crayons are going to come in handy. And in order to do a rubbing, all you really have to do is rub on top with the crayon that you're going to work with. And the reason why I took the wrappers off is so that I can push it, the whole crayon, on top of the piece of paper. And you can see that the leaf appears underneath, which is really exciting. I love doing this because it's always such a surprise when you do the rubbing and you can see all the details of what you're doing the rubbing of. So you can see all the veins in the leaf and even all the crinkles and cuts. And I'm just pushing up and down with my crayon. It doesn't matter what colors you use or what kind of crayons, or oil pastels. Like I said, if you have pastels at your home, this works with pastels too. And now you can see my leaf. And then all I have to do is take my leaf out from under it, and I can use my leaf again and again. So you could keep doing that with the same leaf, or you could do it many different times with different objects. So let's try out some other things that I have here. So I found this leaf. This is a very different shape. And something when you're doing your collecting is you can try to see if you can find things that are different shapes, different colors, or different textures, because the textures are really going to show through when you do the rubbing part of this. So I'm going to stick this leaf under here. This one's a little fatter, so I think I'm interested to see what it's going to look like when I do my rubbing. So I'm just going to take my crayon and rub it on top of the leaf that's under there. Oh, and this one looks really different than the last leaf that I did. And something you can do is you can always go back after you do your rubbing with your crayon, or if you want to use different materials like pencils or markers, and you can kind of color in what didn't get colored in with the rubbing. That's also a fun thing to do. And you can kind of mix colors too, so I might want to add some orange on top of this. There's this leaf here. Let's try, I'll show you a different. So instead of a leaf, these are some little flower weeds that I found. And these I think might look a little different when I put them under my paper to do my rubbing with. So let's see what those look like. I'll use green for those. So we can see the stems, and you can see a little bit of the flowers kind of peeking through there. And something that's great about doing nature rubbings is they're going to change depending on what you use, so even for different seasons. So it's springtime right now, so I was finding, you know, ivy that's growing, but also kind of leaves from the winter and fall that had fallen off of the trees. So your rubbings might look different depending on what season it is. So that did look a lot different than some of the leaves that I did. And I also found these pine needles, so I'm very interested to see what those are going to look like when I do rubbings. And since this is really kind of sturdy, it's going to be hard to put it underneath the paper, so I might just take a few of these off and do a rubbing with those instead of putting my whole. And see, you're going to get messy because it's nature, but that's the fun part. So let's stick some of these pine needles under. And see, it's dropping lots of stuff. So definitely find an area where you're okay getting messy when you're going to do this. You can even do it outside. Let's use a different color. I think I might use orange for my pine needles. Ooh. Those, I can see tons of lines coming through with those pine needles there. Oh, so there's my pine needles. What else should we try? Maybe I'll try this leaf that I found here. This one has a different shape than all the other leaves that I've used. I'll stick that under here. And you can keep using the same leaf over and over again. That's the great thing about rubbings, especially if you like a certain part of it, or you can only use a part of the leaf. You don't have to rub the whole thing. Let's do some blue, another blue leaf here. Maybe I'll combine colors. So I'll just do a light rubbing with the blue, and then I might add some red to see if I can make a new color. We know that blue and red make purple, so maybe I can get a little bit of a purple hue here. I'm going to use this leaf again because I like the shape of it so much, but I'm going to put it in a different part of my page. So I'm going to put it down here. I'll do red this time. Now, something else you can do if you don't have crayons or you don't want to do rubbing is you can collage. And remember I said that a collage is a work of art that's a collection of lots of different things put together. So instead of putting my items underneath my page and rubbing on them, I'm actually going to collage them on top of my paper. And you can do rubbings and collaging, you can do one or the other. There's so many different ways to make art with nature. So I'm going to do some collaging with tape today, but you could also use glue if you have glue. And I'm going to pick some items to actually tape on top of my rubbing. So this is an item, this is a sweet gum ball that I found that I knew I wouldn't be able to do a rubbing with because it's so three-dimensional. It's so kind of big and fat. So I think I'm actually going to tape it onto my page. So I'm going to find a place that I want to put it and just tape it down. And if you don't have glue or tape, you can also just kind of place them there and just make art that's kind of there for the moment, but it doesn't have to be permanent. And that's a fun thing to do too. You can also do that outside. You can arrange items that you find on the ground and then just leave them. I think I might want to add one of my leaves that I found here. I'll add that next to the rubbing of one of my leaves. And what else do I want to add? I might add some of my pine needles here. And these you can kind of break apart or keep them together. You can do rubbings and then you can even put the real item kind of on top. See how they look different or how they look the same. I think I might do the same thing with one of my oak leaves here. And that can be a fun thing to research with the grown-ups that you're walking around with collecting items, is you can, you know, look some things up in books or on the internet to find out what kind of leaves you found or what kind of plants you found, if you don't already know. Ooh, I have this leaf that I love the shape of so much. I might put that one right in the center. And instead of taping, I might use a tape roll. So I'm just going to roll my tape so that I can stick it on the back of my leaf. And then tape it down like that. And I think I might want to do a few more rubbings in this part. So I'm just going to stick maybe just half of my leaf underneath this time. And you can just keep adding to your rubbings. And the harder down you press, the darker your rubbing will show up. So you can decide if you want it to be just a light rubbing, or if you really want to show all the little nooks and crannies of your nature items. I might do that in the corner here too. I'll do a different part of the leaf up here. That is going to be our nature rubbing collage. Thank you for joining me today here at Wee Wednesday. I wanted to show you some other examples of nature collages and rubbings that I made. So this is the rubbing and collage that we made together, kind of a combo. I also made just a rubbing of different leaves that I found on my sidewalk. So you can do a collection of one type of item and just do a rubbing. And the last one that I made is a collage of lots of different items that are different shapes and different textures. And I just taped all those down on my piece of paper. So we would love to see the artwork that you make, so please share it with us on social media. You can use the hashtag STL Art Museum and hashtag Wee Wednesday to share it with us. We hope to see you back here next week, and everyone keep on creating. Bye!